Fire Radio.
Gerard Mann, welcome back to the podcast. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. This is the Australia edition from Down Under. What time is it right now for you?
9:35 a.m.
9:35 a.m., 7:35 p.m. You are a whole day ahead of me, sir. And hopefully tomorrow looks great. So I'm looking forward to it. Gerard, I miss you, man. We saw each other for literally 10 minutes in Indianapolis. Your trip got cut short because of some craziness in the world, and you headed back quicker than you wanted to. Usually you make a nice trip out of your time in the States. So because of that, we didn't get to spend more time together, bud.
I know. I hated it. I got to see Pip at Christmas. I didn't get to do my annual Pipcation to Jersey. Didn't get to get my jersey on, check out the Garden State. But yeah, just had to cut it short.
Your jersey on, I love that.
Did get to check out Seattle and Chicago beforehand, and then Indy. And Indy was such a wild week. It always is. You never have the time to do what you want to do. And it's a really weird kind of conference in the fact that at the start of the week, you're like, oh, I've got plenty of time. I've got all the time in the world. And then as the days keep ticking by, you keep going, well, I'm running out of time and I need to see this person and this person and this person. You end up just having these 10-minute conversations, but those 10-minute conversations mean the world to you. Yeah. Yeah,
well, it's got to be hard for you, right? Because, you know, the culture coming to the States to teach here, which you've been doing for many, many years, right? You've gotten to know so many guys and made so many relationships along the way. And so you bring a couple of your buds with you every year from Australia. They make the trek with you. It was good seeing a couple of them this year again. But, you know, for you to catch up, this is literally your one time a year that you get to play catch up with face-to-face with all these guys.
100%. And, the fire service is a family, and that extends to the International Fire Service. And I love nothing more than getting outside my own country and going and seeing like-minded individuals and really, really close friends. I've made extremely close friends out of the International Fire Service. As you know, Pip came down here for Christmas and I got to show Pip my world, which was the coolest thing that I've been able to do to repay Pip for all his kindness and his friendship and his family and their kindness and their friendship. So yeah, that week for me, it really is okay, I am seeing you. I'm going to come find you, which I did for you. I was like, I'm coming to find you. I'll find you at Rev Group.
Well, I'm glad you did. I mean, we literally spent 10 minutes together, right? I was hoping for more.
Yeah, it was a great conversation though. That 10 minutes, we squeezed a lot in. We got through a bit. Able to catch up a little bit. We talked about passion versus education. We talked about me becoming a new officer. We talked about families and how Terry's doing and how it is being a dad and having your child in your fire service now, in your fire department.
Yeah, well, and yes. Yeah, it's pretty wild. This is what's fun though, right? It's when you make such strong connections with people. And you and I truly have made some great connections along the way, and so much so that we've gotten to know each other's personal lives too, which I think that matters, right? It kind of, a lot of these relationships, I don't want to say are superficial, but they're not deep, right? They're pretty wide. We know, you share a laugh, you share a story, some common theme stuff, and then you move on to the next guy. And then there's guys that you really make a connection with. And those are the relationships that I just absolutely love to double down on, because I personally, the selfish side of it is I get something from it every time. And I think it's the same for you as well. When you go deeper in a relationship, it's a give and take. Some days I lean on you I need to pick me up, and other days I'm there to pick you up, and I think that's those relationships that have substance. That's what truly matters.
Well, we talk about this being the brotherhood, right? And I've heard the phrase thrown around, you can be a great fireman and a bad person, and I don't believe that at all. I think to be a great fireman, you have to be a really good person as well. And you have to have that deeper connection. If we're going to talk about the brotherhood and sisterhood of the fire service, you need to have that deeper level connection. You can't just talk about, we're doing cross lays or relays. you know, you need to know your people, and it's a really important step to create that bond inside the firehouse, to make people feel valued, to make people feel like they matter. How much more do you feel like you matter if you know your people's children's names, if you know your people's wife's name, if you know what's going on in their
Right.
lives? You make them feel connected to you. And that connection, that connectivity, past all the shiny trucks and hose lays and all that kind of stuff, is what brings us together and what creates that deeper culture and that deeper connection, because you're able to then go, well, I know that person. So now, instead of having an all-out argument with them on the apparatus floor, I'm going to have a conversation with them because I know them on a deeper personal level. So it's a really good way
Yes.
of, yeah.
Is that part of it? Is that part of the is that part of becoming a new officer? Is that part of the process of learning that, understanding the importance of getting to know your people so it becomes more personal and not just a manager and firefighter type thing, boss versus fireman? It's listen, I'm your boss on the fire ground. Sure, I'm the company boss, but man, I got to know who you are. We need to connect. We need to have that connection. I mean, I know for you as an officer, new officer, there's a lot of the big learning curve, huh?
So I got promoted to the equivalent of like captain-ish in the
Right.
United States Fire Service in October. And it's been a wild journey. So after promotion, I got sent back into an area that I'm very comfortable in. I got sent back into our training division. And I was working in my training department. I eventually became the coordinator of that training department. And because it was very comfortable, because it's a environment that I worked in so much, I found it very easy. And then about 3 weeks ago, I started on shift at a fire station. And not just any fire station, the biggest fire station in my fire service. So there's 21 of us on shift. So getting to know people is kind of difficult when and we are very old school in the fact that the officers have officers' quarters and there's firefighters' quarters, and you don't really interact in downtime. Right. So I've had to try as much as I can to get to know these people as quickly as I can. And I've been playing some games with that. So, and I've stolen this from Aaron Fields, where you just ask people some really interesting questions to see their answers, and then it just sparks up conversation. Yeah.
Yes.
So, you know, like, if you could have a statue of anything in your front lawn, what would the statue be? What's your death row meal? Would you rather 10 years in a coma or 5 years in jail? And stole the last one from Corley. What song do you want to turn out to? But like, these things just get people going, oh, okay, this officer's not just sitting here being all business. He's actually trying to talk to me and get to know me. And it might be superficial questions, but he wants to know me on a deeper level, because then you start probing. All right, why do you want Luke Skywalker's statue in your front lawn? You know, why do you want to turn out to that song? Why do you want to eat that? Like, what's special about that meal? Yeah. All those type of things. So it's been interesting. But getting outside of my comfort zone and being the officer has been the most challenging thing I've ever done. I'm stuffing up every day, and I've had to change my mindset into the fact that I'm basically a new recruit. I've gone from competent firefighter to novice officer, and it's a really uncomfortable position to know that I'm not performing at the level that I would like to perform. And I'm not making great decisions because I haven't had that experience to draw on yet. And I think making poor decisions is part of gaining that experience, but also it's very reflective and very humbling to know that you're outside your depth a lot of the time. And it's really good. Like, my service is good. I've got a lot of good friends and good mentors that I can ring up and ask their advice on. But sometimes those decisions have to happen on the spot. And I'm just trying to hold myself accountable.
I mean, how else do you grow but how else do you grow but making mistakes, right? I mean, if you it's really the awareness of it, I think, is, you know, we have a lot of people that are put into positions of authority and they're not aware or have the self-awareness to realize they don't have all the answers and that they're really starting over again in a new position, and they need to have the humility to do so. And a lot of times they don't. And for you to recognize that from the get and say you're not comfortable where you are yet, I mean, there's just self-awareness right there. I mean, that and how are those questions received by your people? Like when you're coming back from a run and you ask something silly, or a question to kind of gauge your people, like how is it received? Do they even get what you're doing?
They don't until I explain it a little bit, and especially because
Yeah, like,
so for anyone who doesn't know me, I used to have a mustache up till about 3 weeks ago. A big mustache. It hid my face, made me look a lot older.
yes,
Made me look a lot sterner.
mm-hmm.
And so I have a bit of a reputation in being this like guy who's really into the job, hates complacency, really wants people to be training all the time. And that then overlaps like, oh, well, he mustn't have a fun side, or as fun a side, he's a very serious fire service robot. So for me to be sitting there asking these questions and having a joke with them, it really busts down the walls very quickly. And especially in a service where we have separate offices to firefighters' quarters, it's breaking that hierarchy a little bit, becoming more personable. But yeah, so to talk about the mustache, that's why I took it off. And I know it sounds silly, but starting as an officer, I was like, I'm baby-faced. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not the persona that I've become. I'm brand new. So I'm going to change my look. I'm going to just take this mustache off. I'm going to be mustacheless for a few months until I start to find my feet a bit. Yeah. So, and I know that sounds stupid and a bit corny, but for me, it was a bit symbolic of like, yeah, cool. I accept that I am nobody.
No, I think it makes tremendous sense. I mean, I get it, right? And it's almost like it's also a reminder to yourself. I mean, every day when you get up and look in the mirror, you look like a different person. I said to you when I saw you shaved it off, I was like, who's this guy? I thought it was like your brother, like a stand-in, you know what I mean? I didn't know who I was talking to. But, listen, it's good to change things up. And, change is good. Change for the sake of change isn't always good, but change for the betterment of yourself is good. And if shaving that mustache is kind of, reminiscence of what you've done, the new beginning, the new chapter you've started, I think it's fantastic. I want to ask you this because this is really interesting. You said fire service robot, and you said the mustache conveyed this message of this guy that was hardcore into training and firefighting and the brotherhood and all that, but yet you do have a fun side to you. And I wonder, you bring up a really good point, is that a lot of times we have these ideas that these hardcore guys are so dialed in that they don't have a soft, gooey side. And I think that couldn't be further from the truth. I actually find that, and I want to get your feedback on this, but I actually find a lot of times the guys that are so dialed in actually have a fantastic fun side to them. And you have to be willing to get to their level to appreciate what they have.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's been funny, a few people, because you got this reputation or you gain this reputation that you're really into it, you want to train all the time, you hate complacency, so like operationally, you jip people if they're not jip them, but you remind people that, hey, this is a fire until proven otherwise. So in Melbourne Central Business District or downtown area, we have a bit of the inner suburbs as well. But every time we turn out to the downtown area, it's usually for an automated fire alarm. And that's usually been set off by a false alarm. So there becomes this complacency that gets bred into us. And then you have to pull people up on that complacency and go, hey, do your job. Why are you taking the rabbit tool? Take the irons, because you'll probably have an outward opening door as the first door you have to force, that kind of stuff. And that then spreads out because that's when you interact with other stations, you're on a call, you're shown outside your station, and those other stations will only see that side of you. And then that's how the reputation grows. But the people you work with know that as soon as you get back in the truck, you're going to be like, cool, what did we learn from that? How did we see this, this, and this? All right, let's go ask some silly questions. Let's go play a game of football. Let's do something fun now. And that stuff doesn't get talked about because I think people are scared of being caught out and not knowing what they're doing or feeling inadequate, but they don't understand that that's part of understanding or building yourself up to be better and more competent. So they only focus on that side, not on the fun side. Would you agree to that, or do you think I'm just way off the mark here?
Yeah, well, I would. No. I think you're 100% accurate, and I also think too. I look at today. I look at the fact that I go double-sided on this. I look at when it comes to like the younger generation, the guys that are on the trucks today, twofold. One, in the firehouse or on the training ground, they're not afraid to ask a question. They're not afraid to ask you to show them again. They want to learn. They want to absorb it. They want to understand what the expectation is. They want to know if they're doing it right, if they're not doing it right, how they could do it better. That's the younger generation. But then what I find is on the fire ground, they're afraid to take initiative or they're afraid to make a decision without somebody giving them some attaboys saying it's okay, like, it's okay to make that decision. It's okay to take initiative here. Like, we've trained you. Now go do it. On the training ground, they'll ask all the questions in the world and show me. But on the fire ground, I almost find like there's a little bit of a disconnect that they're afraid to stick their necks out because of retribution, or they're afraid to make a mistake. And maybe it's their own self getting in the way, that if they make an error, they don't know how to deal with that. I don't know. I mean, break that down for me.
So same circus, different clowns. Like, I'm finding the same thing here,
right?
And I'm worried. And I don't know. Like, I've thought about this a lot, and I don't know whether it's our training culture to some degree, where firefighting will always be taught by firefighters. It won't be taught by educators. But we've never taught firefighters how to educate people. So a lot of our training is still very archaic in the fact that it's just sets, reps, systems, not explained very well, not contextualized very well. And especially with today's modern training grounds, like my service predominantly uses theatre smoke and gas props. Your instructors need to be able to contextualize the environment that they're creating. Because if it's a cold day and I turn on the gas prop with the theatre smoke, my inversion layer flips, right? So I heat up all the air, the hot air expands and then pushes the theatre smoke down low. So it's the inverse of what they actually see in a fire. So we have to contextualize it well. And when we can't contextualize it well, or when the students aren't picking up what we're trying to put down as instructors, we often get frustrated. And it's something that we have to police ourselves, but we will take that frustration out on them by going, why don't you know this? How can't you? Like, why did you do that? That was a stupid decision, whatever it is. So we reprimand them when they do use initiative on the training ground, even though they are asking us all of the right questions. So do you think that the reprimanding on the training ground, or the way we're approaching our students when we're instructing, is then causing this fear of initiative on the fire ground, or fear of execution on the fire ground in case they do the wrong thing? And the other thing that I'd like to put on that
go ahead.
Is probably we're giving them conflicting information.
Please go.
Between instructors. You know, when instructors have differing opinions, so like I'll be like, don't listen to Jeremy. Jeremy doesn't know what he's talking about, blah, blah, blah. And we undermine our brother and sister instructors. So now they don't know who to trust either, so they don't know when to use that initiative. That's my take on it. Like, I'm trying to work it out.
That is, yeah. That's good. I mean, that is, you're a dead nuts right on that, because I've had conversations with guys that have gone through the fire academy recently, and they come back and be like, it's mixed messages. One day I got this instructor in the academy and he's telling me one way, and the next way they're telling me another way. And then when we have to do our test and we're doing check boxes and JPRs, they tell us to do it this way because the test requires it this way. We're not creating an environment that's conducive to how kids learn today. And so, like, we have to create an environment that the generation today, from, say, 18 years old to 30, that group that are coming in the door for the fire service, are teaching. And I love how you put that, right? we teach, we teach our firefighters. We teach our firefighters to learn. We don't teach them how to teach, right? Like, I forget how beautiful you said that. I'll go back when I edit this because you said it really well. And I think that there's a lot to that. I've been talking a lot about this too, about who's greeting our recruits when they walk through the door. Or do we have washed up guys that haven't been on a fire truck in a couple of years that are tired and they're living out their days at the academy? Or is it a volunteer position? Did they get appointed there because they're not good out on the street? And now these are the ones that are, working straight days, and guys want straight days. And then therefore they're dealing with the probate class, but they don't have the love and passion for the job. And now they're responsible for this new generation coming through the door, and they don't share any love or passion. If anything, they're bad talking the job. They're contradicting the way it should be taught. They're finding it their own way. Like, all these things add up. And you have a young, impressionable firefighter that's coming through the door, and none of it makes sense to them. And the younger generation needs clear, identifiable rules, regulations, operations, strategy, tactics. They need to know what's expected of them. They want it in front of them so they can study it and know it. You can't deviate from it. The problem is not everything's black and white, but I think the fire academy can be to an extent. I think the introductory welcome to the fire service, here's day one, here's what we're going to be doing. If we clearly identify the program and educate clearly along the way with a consistent message and a consistent approach, we will get them on board. And then when they get to our firehouses, our job then, the culture takes over. We're going to show you how we stretch my engine company, but also I'm going to teach you why you're going to fall in love with this job. I mean, that's super important.
Mate, you're so right. And like, I touched on this in both of my FDIC classes, right? I think we're missing the point when we train scenarios and not systems. And because we need to train systems, because we can't teach you what to think, we need to teach you how to think. Because every scenario that we run at the academy is not going to replicate the scenarios that you're going to face out here. They're going to be slightly different. So you need to understand the system to a degree of how we're applying it, not just steps 1 to 4. So step 1, we're applying it because of this, this, and this. Now, one of my buddies, Denny Tinatali, you've met him. Me, him, and Aussie Steve were teaching an instructor course in January this year. And Denny was teaching the how to teach component. And we talked about, we can't teach you anything. We can only teach you how to think. And then he's like, all right, so let's break down how we teach firefighting. So we'll take structural firefighting, for instance. So the first thing you want to know is your hazard knowledge. So how do fires work? Basic fire dynamics, basic compartment fire dynamics, all that kind of stuff. Then you need to teach hazard assessment. So from what you know about fire dynamics in buildings, can you identify certain patterns? So vent controlled, fuel controlled, backdraft, flashover, fire gas ignition, all those type of things, because your knowledge is allowing you to pick that up. After you have your hazard assessment, you need to know your control measure. So you have to understand how water works. And that's like, all right, how does water absorb heat? Where do we place water? What format do we place it in? And how much do we utilize to be able to suppress, extinguish, do all those type of things? So we've gone from hazard knowledge, hazard assessment, control measure knowledge. Now we're going to test your decision making. And then we're going to look at your execution of that decision. Now, the beauty of this system that Tinners was explaining was that if you can't assess the hazard, I need to teach you more hazard knowledge. If you can't make a decision, I need to teach you more control measure knowledge. And then if you can't execute, we need to get out on the drill yard and practically do the tasks. And I thought that was really, really good. Now, couple that with, you talked about procedure and you talked about they need things written down. And in my Tall Building Conference talk, I talked about 30-year cycles that you get when you read Hose Stream Management by Parnell. He talked about the 30-year cycle. Right now we're in fog, 30 years we're going to be in smoothbore. We're in smoothbore at the moment. 30 years time we'll probably be back in fog. So we swing. And I looked at our doctrine because we used to have really, really good doctrine. And we we were executing extremely well in that time. There was a book called Fog Attack, written by Paul Grimwood, who talked about the fire brigade that I worked for and how good they were. And over time, I think we stripped back the doctrine because we were like, why do we need this? We know what we're doing here. Pull it back. And now we're, getting on the other side of that 90s hiring freeze when the economy was bad and everyone's leaving and all the experience is walking out the door. And we've got all these new people that didn't know the why because they didn't have the policies and procedures, that now we're finding ourselves returning to create policy and procedure. Right. So how do we do that? And we're looking at, if it's important, you write it down. If it's written down, you train it. So inversely, if it's not important, don't write it down. If it's not written down, don't train it. So that then guides you in both your doctrine creation, so what is important, what isn't important, and your training, because they have to marry up. Doctrine isn't training. Doctrine tells you what to do, training tells you how you apply it. That's how I see it. And yeah, so like hitting on your points there, like
it's good.
Yeah. This new generation needs that, and we need to connect those dots for them. And that's the way that we're trying to solve it. We're trying to simplify it. We're trying to give them pattern recognition to be able to apply certain systems, to be able to achieve favorable outcomes because they understand what they're meant to do and they understand how they execute it.
It is different today for sure. And I think what's interesting is the way you speak about this is with high intellect. And I think that's where we are in the fire service today, is finding that balance between intellect and blue collar. And on the recruit side coming in, it is the pendulum swings much more to intellect than it does blue collar. And so what we have to do then is the doctrine, the training, the black and white, the written policy, strategy, tactics, SOGs, by whatever it is, they have to be clearly and precisely written and taught so that they understand that. And then we take the gray on the training ground and educate them through black and white. We show them there's a mixture of gray built in. And it's just an interesting time. And you talk about this written doctrine that you guys had, and then you were kind of like, we know what our mission is, so it goes by the wayside, and here we are cycling back, and you're starving for it again. You're like, wait a minute, where's that direction? We need that foundation that we built on previously, where to go. And I think a couple things. One, it's pretty interesting how quickly things can change. We say the fire service doesn't change quickly, but with the newer generation, and this happens every single generation, things change, right? And all of a sudden, in a course of a 30-year career, you got 3 decades there. You're going to have 3 sets of people coming through. And it's a really interesting time that the fire service can change very quickly, where you guys are seeking that foundational value from the early 80s and 90s. That was the doctrine of, this is how we operate, this is how we do things, this is the way it is. And then all of a sudden it kind of fades away, only to come back in 2025 now and being like, we're kind of rewriting it because we're missing it. We don't have it. That's a really interesting thing. And what I love about that is that you guys recognize that, because what I talk a lot about is today we have to ask more from our existing people. We have to ask more from our training staff. We have to ask more from our senior people. We have to ask more from the command staff and administration. We have to work harder than we ever did before because of this.
Yeah, 100%. And because we're trying to catch up too, we're trying to squeeze out as much as we can from our senior men and women who are leaving, to be able to go, all right, tell me what was it? Do you still have your old typewriter notes or SOGs? We used to call them yellow books, blue books, and all that kind of stuff. Because I need that. We can't find them anymore. I need to see what we used to do, to see if we need to bring that back in. Because right now there's just so much conflicting information, and come back to the instructor who's trying to teach doctrine and training to these recruits or these people coming in the door at our firehouses. If we have it written down, we can point to that. As I said, if it's important, we write it down. If it's written down, we teach it. So now there's not Jeremy's way or Gerard's way of solving this issue. There is the fire service way of solving this issue. This is how we're going to do it at this training academy, at this fire department, in this fire rescue service. And then the 1%ers can be added on after. But now I can't say, well, Jeremy's wrong because Jeremy's teaching the doctrine. And inversely, if we don't like what's written in the doctrine, let's have mechanisms where you and me can go, hey, this isn't right anymore. This isn't important. We can do this better. How do we now change our doctrine? So you need to have that robust process of being able to capture people and their information and their experience and what they're bringing to the table to edit what you're currently doing and then edit the training on top of that. So if someone comes up with a better way of laying hose, well, let's capture it, let's write it down, and then let's teach it. You know, like it's...
Yes. And I love all that. I'm curious, though. I kind of want to bridge it now because when you were appointed to an officer position in October, I think you said you went to the training academy. So you're seeing this firsthand. But then imagine taking that to the street. All of a sudden now you're assigned to a firehouse and you're doing company training, in-service training, and you're not working. What are you working off of? Like, how do you go back to your people, right? And then say, like, well, how do we implement this to existing companies? It's one thing to capture those coming through in your new academy classes or doing company training, rotating through the fire academy, but just your everyday drill, boots on the ground. You go out and walk a neighborhood and you talk about how you stretch. It doesn't follow suit. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's got to be a disconnect.
Oh, this is where I'm excited, because if we've written something down, we've written a lesson plan on it. And now I can go out on the street and we can look at certain things. So, like, I'm really big on taking my crew out on the street every day shift, sometimes night shifts, walking the neighborhood to see the challenges that we're going to face. Because I think people aren't really...
Yeah, of course.
And this is a whole other segue into another topic, but I think the switch that the fire service used to have just isn't there anymore. So when we're out in the rig, I don't think people are really concentrating looking at the challenges. But when we go out and look at these challenges, we're starting to go, okay, cool. So what does the doctrine say around structure fire strategies and tactics, operational guidelines around hose lays and forcible entry to solve this issue? And where are the gaps in these? All right, so what are the gaps? Well, is it actually a gap, or is it that we're not contextualizing the doctrine well enough? Like, the first time I did this, we went for a bit of a walk. They look like row houses in Jersey, but they're from the late 1800s, early 1900s, row shops where you used to have the residence above and the shop below.
Right.
And I walked through there and I'm like, all right, cool. So let's talk about these. We get a fire on the first floor. Where's the access to that first floor? And they're like, oh, well, there'll be a door. And I'm like, point to it. Because there's just shop fronts. They're like, oh. And I'm like, think about what this was. So they thought about it. And I'm like, so where would the stairwell be? Oh, at the rear. Sick. What type of stairwell is it looking into this shop? Oh, it'd just be a straight shot. And I'm like, does the staircase come into the front of house? No, so it's a 90-degree plus a U-turn. So we're starting to like apply everything we know about hose management to it. How are we going to get to the rear? Oh, well, there's an alleyway. Well, look at the Google Maps. There's no alleyway. There's just these little courtyards that connect to 5 or 6 shops per block. So should we just go in the front door because we actually understand which address we're going to, all those type of things. And it's allowed me to go, all right, here's all the challenges we've identified. This is why I'm going to go back now and we're going to drill on these certain things. Because this is the context I want you to have in your head when we're training on hose lays in the rear yard. So like stepping down from a 2.5 to 1 3/4 kind of stuff. Because we need extra hose, so to reduce the friction loss, let's use larger diameter down into smaller diameter, and then we'll talk about movement and all that kind of stuff. Another big one was padlocks. So like we were seeing a lot of padlocks on the front of these shops. And I asked the crew, and it's a fall down of 5. I heard you talking with Chief Rhodes. I was listening to that one last night on the way in. Around what we're actually teaching at schools. And like, you know, you're not pulling ceilings, you're not doing this kind of stuff. So I said, all right, how would we get through this padlock? And they're like, oh, well, we could use the bolt cutters or we could use the angle grinder. And I'm like, you can use a Halligan and an axe. And their eyes just went like, what? So I went down to, yeah, that was their faces. So I went down to Bunnings.
Right? Yeah, right?
Yeah.
What?
I went down to the hardware store and I spent a bit of money out of my own pocket on a bit of chain and about 20 padlocks. And we went back to the firehouse and we just drilled on using the pike and the claw to break apart locks. Now that did two things. Three things. It gave them options when they're out there in the street. It allowed them to see the application of what we're training and relate it to the environment that they're operating in. And my personal investment out of my back pocket shows them that I care about them enough to spend money on them so that they're better at their job.
100%.
You know, and like people say to me, oh, you should just get a reimbursement. And I'm like, no, it's too hard. I'd have to fight too hard to get that. And I'm not willing to do that. All I wanted to do, my mission was achieved. All I wanted to do was invest in my people, upskill them, and show them that I care. And that's it. And I got to do that. I'm happy.
And that's a win.
Yeah.
And that's how we get better. And that's how people take initiative. And that's how we instill confidence. And that's why, you know, something you said to me, I want to go down this road a little further with you, is the switch, looking at challenges. We so often today walk with our heads down and not with our heads up. And I just talk about in life in general. Like, we're not looking out for one another because we're more concerned about ourselves. We're literally walking with our head down, looking at our phone and not looking around. Like, I can't even tell you how many times I tell my kids I want them to be more visual. I want them to be more aware of their surroundings. When they go places, I want you to sit with your, you know, face facing the door, you know, put your back to the wall, like that type of stuff. Situational awareness, but we're losing that. We need the engagement guy in the firehouse, and the engagement guy is really starting to disappear. We need the guy to be able to continue the conversation, get people's heads up, and start engaging our people. And if that means going to walk the street and putting phones in your pocket for a half hour, an hour, they will if you engage them. And we're missing that. And I think we need to do a better job at walking with our heads up than with our heads down. And the way you put it, the switch, right? There's been a switch, and you're looking at challenges. We got to do better at that.
Yeah, like being a new officer and also being aware of who I am, I'm trying not to come down too hard on people. But like, I'm going to an alarm and the guys in the back are talking about the game, you know,
right?
that they're watching on TV. And I'm like, guys, I don't want you there, right? We're in the apparatus. We're bells and whistles to an alarm. I want you thinking, do I know this building? How tall is it? Where's the best access? How many people are in it? Is it a commercial or residential property? I want you thinking those type of things. I don't want you talking about what happened in the last quarter of the game, because we're turning out now. This is go time, and until we prove that it isn't a fire, it is a fire. I need you to re-engage. I need you to stop having complacency. I was lucky enough to pick up Frank Leeds' book when I was at FDIC this year, and Chapter 6, he talks about one of my mentors in the fire service, Chief Jerry Tracy. Great guy. Jerry had a war on complacency. And like, I only know retired Jerry. I don't know active duty Jerry. But the way that Frank writes about him is just phenomenal, because he was just at war with complacency every single day. Frank was on an automated alarm at a warehouse. Spoilers here, guys, if you haven't read it. He was at an automated alarm in a warehouse. Chief Tracy turns up, radios him, and goes, how tall is the building you walked into? And he didn't check. He just walked in. So he turned to his probie and went, how tall is this building? Right. Oh, 5 stories, Cap. 5 stories, Chief. You know, but then Frank owned that after. But it was the reminder. And like, I read that on my second shift on station. I'm like, yep, cool. So I'm going to check the height of every building I walk into now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
It's
That's
that
pretty
moral
funny.
complacency, and like it's the hard thing because if you smack people, they won't want to come near you, and if they don't come near you, they don't trust you, they won't work for you. It won't happen.
How are you doing it? How are you getting them to talk about the run than the match that they're watching on the way to the run, right? Like,
So I
so
just
how do you, as a new officer, or what do you think, what are some ways that might work, or things that where you can engage your people to get more involved?
So right now, while I'm new, I can still use that I don't know, I don't have the local knowledge you guys do around this, so I can start asking them questions. All right, guys, has anyone been in this building before? Does anyone have any local knowledge about it? What's the height? What's the occupancy? Where's the fire access? And I just start talking with them and guiding them in the conversation, but asking them questions and pretty much because I still want to know. Like what I just said about local knowledge, I don't have the local knowledge these crews have. They've been at this station for 2-3 years. I've just come there. So I am genuinely asking them.
Right.
But after that, I'm like when that starts to run out, I've got to start thinking of different strategies or different tactics to utilize to be able to get them more switched on. I'm also giving them information. Like I'll ask them a question. One that I ask is, what's the difference between a combined hydrant sprinkler system versus a hydrant and sprinkler system? So under Australian code, it's a combined hydrant sprinkler system. The sprinklers come off the hydrant riser. Therefore, the isolation to the sprinkler system is going to be on the hydrant riser, on the floor. So if we have a sprinkler head and we need to turn it off, it's there. Where if it's a separate piping system, so a hydrant and sprinkler system, they'll be in different spots. So then where are they going to be? That kind of stuff. And I just start giving them these little tips and knowledge drops to be able to go,
Yeah.
all right, here's what I'm thinking. Here's some helpful tips for us when we're operational.
Yeah.
And then I also have the conversation around it. Like one thing, and I talk about this with a good mate of mine, John McDonough. He's an Australian instructor. He's also an international instructor, and he's absolutely brilliant guy. Does a lot of thinking around teaching and task-based systems and all that kind of stuff. But I can have 3 brilliant firefighters and be the worst officer, and the fire's going to go out. Because those firefighters will make that fire go out. They'll have the skills to be able to do that. I could be the best officer and have 3 really bad firefighters, and that fire burns itself out. No one put it out. And what I'm trying to get at here is what limits your tactical options is the skills of your crews. So during these conversations, I talk to people, if you're going to promote, if you want to be an officer, understand that you need to have good firefighters under you because good firefighters expand your tactical options. So let's go back to the common question, you've got a person hanging out a window on the 2nd story and there's heavy smoke coming out behind them. Do you fight the fire or do you rescue the person? You know that age-old question? Well, everyone says, well, I do this, I do that. Well, it depends, and it actually just depends on the ability of your crew. What's your crew better at? Is your crew really good at ladders and extricating people from windows with ladders? Because if they suck at it, you're not going to go that option, are you? Do you know what I mean? So the skill of your people.
I do. I think. No, I love that. Right. The way you put it makes tremendous sense to me. You know that through trying to figure out how I want to package this. Like you know what they're good at because you gave them or worked with them to know what they're good at. Yeah. Like you're gonna make those decisions based upon your tactical strengths. And so if I got to get water to the fire or throw that ladder and grab that victim, right, here we are. And then, but everything else comes into play with it. And I think this is where, like, to take it one step further, which I think is the most critical part of this conversation, is making a decision. And you make the best decision you make whenever I always say this, if you make a decision based upon the mission 100% of the time, you'll never make the wrong decision. It's only when you insert yourself into the conversation will you potentially make the wrong decision. And so when you're faced with a situation like that, making that decision is based upon all of those factors, all those things you talked about. You have to prioritize what your strengths are and how do we affect the best possible outcome in this current situation. And then we go do that. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. What can, like, okay, my tactical options. And you've got to know your people. And like I tell my guys,
Yes.
I don't care that you suck as long as you're trying to get better. Just tell me where you're at. I'm not going to come down hard on you if you suck, but I look out in the backyard every day and you're out there doing sets and reps. I'm going to give you all the time in the world, man. I'll come out there with you till 4 a.m. in the morning and we'll do sets and reps together. I'll be there right beside you, investing in you because you're investing in yourself. But if you suck and you don't do anything, I've got to choose my language. I'm not going to be very happy.
I get it. I get it.
With how you're
no,
performing.
You're 100%.
You're limiting my tactical.
You're right.
And you're destroying the mission. You're destroying the mission. You don't give a damn about the mission. You don't give a damn about why you're here, and you don't give a damn about the people that are paying your salary or entrust you with the most vulnerable parts of their lives to come and help them. Because you can't.
You also the other part of that too is like you also don't have enough dignity or respect for yourself to make yourself proficient at the job. And that's the thing. It's like, it doesn't matter if you're a fireman or a postal worker or a carpenter or a janitor. We have shitty janitors and we have excellent janitors, right? Like we have shitty firemen and we have good firemen. The accountability aspect of it, right, is like, like you don't get to pick and choose your day. Like you don't get to really have a bad day. The whole point of the brotherhood and what we do and how we train and all those things is based upon when I'm having a bad day, I need everyone else around me to be having a great day, to pick me up, to get me back on level so that if I need to perform to the best of my abilities, I'm not hampered by anything else other than doing that job. And you have to be proud of that. Like I don't know who wants to go to work and be subpar. Like, I just don't get that. And there's things I have to work on in my own personal life. Like, I'm not perfect. I don't sit here. I hate when they're like, preach. I'm not preaching because preaching is coming from a place of like entitlement or something. And that's not what I like to do. I have my faults. I suck at a ton of things in this world. You know what I mean? But like, I take pride in who I am and I take pride in the things that I do. And I recognize that I could do some things better. And so I have to own that too. Who wants to suck in life? Like, who wants to suck at being a firefighter? Who wants to always be the one having a mask problem or the one that prays that when they go to the firehouse that day, they don't get challenged to go to a fire? Like, if that's you, there's problems here. It's no good.
And we failed you because we brought you into this. And that's the attitude you have. We failed you, like right in the get-go. We've done something wrong because you've come here and you're like, I do not feel confident. I do not want to train. I do not want to get better. I'm going to go hide in the corner and just hope I never get caught out. That kind of thing. What culture did we provide you coming in the door that led you to that? Because I don't know a single firefighter that's ever gone, you know what, this fire here, going to run it horribly. Just going to be real shit at it. Now, every firefighter's trying the best they can with what they have. But what culture did we set for you to not make you want to have more?
I love that you're taking ownership of this. That's what I love. Is like, and that to me is what a good boss is, right? Is like somebody that understands that everything is our fault. It's not his fault. It's our fault. Why didn't we did it not click? Was our delivery not clear enough? Were we not precise in our doctrine? Was it not taught to them in a way that they understand? Like, I love how this is kind of coming full circle. But for you to take ownership of that, I was blaming the individual. And you're like, nope, it's our fault. It's my fault. I'm the company boss. I'm the captain. and it lands on me. So if I got a guy that's dragging ass on the back step and I can't get him on board, that's my fault. That's wild, bro. I love that about you.
Well, yeah, whose fault would it be? Who else's fault would it be? Like, I didn't build a culture. I didn't provide them with a safe space to explain or let them fail. I didn't build a culture where they could fail. I didn't build a culture where they felt like I was invested in them and their training. I didn't build a culture where the mission wasn't first and foremost in everything we do. That's how we got here. It's on me as the leader, and then it's on my leaders to produce leaders like me, and it's on their leaders to produce leaders to produce leaders. We're only custodians for the short time.
That's pretty
that
awesome.
We're in this job, right? We're only custodians. We're only protecting this for a short
True.
time. It's not our patch. It's the patch of the service. When we leave, it's going to be there. What kind of reputation, what kind of environment, what kind of culture do you want people coming in?
I'm writing that down. That was a great quote, by the way. It's not our patch. It's the patch of the service. It's good stuff, man. It's really good stuff. I just love that you take ownership of it. It's easier to point the finger and blame. It's easier to point the finger, obviously, away from ourselves. I mean, we never like to take responsibility for failure and think that it lands on us when in fact it might land square in our court.
And it sucks. It hurts. Like, admitting
where does that come from you? Like, where did you get that? Did you have mentors that like really went all in on you? Is this something that you have found over your time? Like, I'm just curious, like, where does this mindset come from?
So I've got a few mentors who really promote the mindset. I read a lot of Stoicism, which is basically, you're in charge, you do it. Like Marcus Aurelius,
I love that.
Seneca, all those guys. Because that's all it is, right? Like, there's only service. That's it. And that's how I feel. And so my service to my people is to create environments, to create firefighters, and to protect our community the way that I'd want it done for myself. And to do that, I've got to take ownership. Like, what's that quote? Who will go for me? Send me. Here I am. Like, if you want to fix it, you can sit here and complain about this, right? Like, you can sit here and whinge all day about it. But are you actively doing something to change it? So because I want to whinge about it, I actively do something to change it. And that's
yes. Thank you. Because it's easier to blame. And I wonder though, like, here's the thing. A lot of pushback I get when I talk like this, and a lot of pushback comes, fire service sucks. I'm not getting any support at home. Our chiefs are in it for the wrong reasons. We're not getting the support of the command staff. The guys in the firehouse suck. Like, the culture's terrible. It's not the same job it used to be. And in fact, the ownership that you took of this saying, yeah, sometimes this job lets you down. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it lets you down time and time again where it does not care about you. Yes, that's reality. But do you want to throw in your towel? Or do you want to try to push back? Do you want to hold yourself more accountable? Like, that's hard for people to do, especially when they feel that they're not getting the support or the fire service has not gone all in. I mean, if you think about it, Gerard, when these kids come to the fire service, we ask everything of them. We ask them to die for this job, for the people they serve, the service, in your words, the service. We tell them that you will bleed, you will get hurt, and you could die in this job, right? We ask everything. You can't ask for more from somebody in a profession than the fire service. You potentially could die doing this job, and doing this job correctly, you could die. Thank you. We ask everything from our people, and then our departments let us down time and time again.
And it doesn't just have to be like...
It's hard.
oh, you got killed in a building collapse, you got killed in a fire event, you got killed in those type of things. You're going to be exposed to carcinogens that are going to cause cancer, right? So you might do 30 years and then you might have 5 years and you get
100%.
cancer.
Mhm.
And so you are asking people to put themselves at significant risk to life and health to come do this job. How are we investing in those people or allowing them to express themselves or become the best firefighters that they can be? And it's not a cookie cutter recipe, right? We're not the same people.
Right.
So we have to reach them on an individual level. You have to go, all right, what makes this individual tick? All right, what's Jeremy's learning style? What's Gerard's learning style? What's Pip's learning style? What are Pip's strengths? What are Pip's weaknesses? You know, I hear he makes a really good cannoli, but anyway, it's those type of things that we have to start to.
I love it.
It's those type of things that we have to
That
start
was good.
to understand or look at when we bring people into this. Like, it's hard, and then passion's a hard one too, right? I had a lesson when I was working at the training college, and it's a hard lesson that I've learned. Like, because let's take this conversation now and like go, all right, how do we implement it? So you can see solutions. You're a change maker, but you can't make that change because there's red tape, there's this, there's that, and you're going to get frustrated, right? One thing I learned being an officer early at the training academy, an environment that I was very comfortable in, was if you're right and angry, you're wrong. So I'll just say that again. If you're right, but you're angry, you're wrong. It's not till you're right and calm that you're right. Because let's look at passion, and passion's a positive word most of the time. Oh, that person's very passionate about the fire service. They're very into it. What does passion mean? It means that it's an uncontrollable emotional response. Right? So if you're trying to make change, you need to be able to harness your passion and be educated instead. And this is something that I learned. I don't want to be called passionate anymore when I'm having conversations about making change. I want to be called passionate when I'm talking about the brotherhood. I want to be called passionate when I'm talking about how much I care for the fire service and the people in it. That's when I want to be called passionate. But when I'm trying to change something, I never want to be called passionate again, because passion is dismissible. Don't worry about Jeremy. Jeremy's just passionate. Now let's replace the word passion with education, or educated. Don't worry about Jeremy. Jeremy's just educated. Who looks like an idiot now?
I love it. I love this.
Yeah. So if you get, and like change makers get frustrated because like we've talked about the problems. We've talked about some solutions that we've found for our perspective contexts, or respective context, sorry. Now, how do we make that change? Do you go in there banging tables, yelling at people, saying, we need to do better, we need to do this, we need to do that, which we do. We need to bring that to the light. But this is the way we're going to do it. We're going to do it this way. There's no other way, blah, blah, blah. That's where we need to curb the passion and start using education and go, all right. So we know that we're getting different learners in because they're Gen Z, they're more tech savvy. Do we go down the VR route when we can walk around a pump panel? Do we look at more interactive training because these people are gamers? Do we look at how they process information? So like, you remember, I was on the cusp, I was born in 88. I know what it's like to have a landline phone, to have a telephone book, all that kind of stuff. And you used to remember people's telephone numbers. Now you don't do that anymore. You just remember where to find the number. You remember where to find the information. You don't remember the information. So are we, how are we bringing that into our training? How are we bringing that into our culture building? All those type of things. That's where you need to use education when you're trying to make change, not passion. Passion incites it. Education actually achieves it. So passion incites change. Education achieves change.
I love that. I think it is so well said, man. I can't wait to put that clip out because I know it's going to do so well. There's so much to that. Um, it's really well thought out, and you're right. We excuse passion all the time, like we just do, right? It's an easy catch all for those of us that are gun ho and looking to push things, push people, push the environment to be better and to bring new ideas. And it's just easy to dismiss when you call them passionate. He's excitable. He's passionate, right?
Yeah, whatever. He's always coming in here with new ideas. He's just passionate.
Right.
He's always going to those conferences.
Yeah.
He's just passionate. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. He's just
But
passionate.
you replace that with educated, and it just it hits so differently. That's really good, Jared. That's good.
So these are the things that, like,
See, wise beyond your years, sir. Wise beyond your years.
Yeah, but yeah, like,
let me ask you this. Let's change. Go ahead. What were you gonna say? There's like a little bit of a time lag. Are you getting that too?
No, you're perfect.
There's like
yeah.
Okay. I'm getting like a little bit of a time lag. That's why my timing's off a little bit. I apologize. Let's change the subject just a little bit. We hit that pretty good, man. I love that. I want to talk about FDIC this year for yourself, the 2 classes that you were teaching, and so on. I know you have an incredible passion for knowledge and sharing experience and knowledge with firefighters across the world. You've had opportunities to teach all over the world, which is pretty cool, and to learn and so on. So give me a little rundown on your classes this year. How were they for you?
Really good. So I had 2 classes. I got invited back to the Tall Building Fire Safety Conference, which is a conference inside of FDIC, and it's predominantly high-rise,
right?
And so skyscrapers and groundscapers, or tall and complex buildings. And it's a really amazing conference if you're interested in that side of firefighting, or you're in the fire industry. It's where we all come to meet. Like, it's fire engineers, it's fire safety marshals, it's firefighters all together talking about how we increase life safety in tall and complex buildings, and what challenges we're finding and what solutions we're finding to those challenges. So I got invited there to speak again, and there I talked about pretty much where we were on our doctrine creation training side of things, and how we were putting it all together as our service. And then what our next steps are, which will be more investment in looking at appropriate equipment to be able to support our tactical decisions and affect our strategy. The second class I gave a 1 minute 45, 1 hour, not 1 minute 45, 1 hour 45 minute lecture on wildland urban interface firefighting. And it was really
interesting.
Really cool. I'll start off by saying that, like, when I sit here in my country and think about wildland urban interface firefighting, I am no expert. I'm just a practitioner. Summers in Australia, we have big wildfires. Generally, we'll do some time on a fire line somewhere protecting a community. So we understand wildland urban interface firefighting. It's part of our ethos or our DNA here in this country. So when I was asked to, like, when I put in for it and when I came over there, because I saw that we weren't talking about it much over there, but we have increases. Like, I saw Jersey's wildfire a couple of weeks back, and that thing was insane.
Yes.
And
wild. Overnight, it just exploded. Yeah.
And having been to Jersey, man, like, I don't see that as volatile bushland. Like, coming from Australia, I'm there looking around going,
you gotta go south of Pips, man. You gotta go south of Pips. You gotta go towards the coast and south. The Pine Barrens is where that was, what they call it, and it's all forest land. And it's we had major fires down there years and years ago, and it's had plenty of time for that underbrush to grow back. And it's not unheard of. We've had just perfect conditions for fire weather. And then same with like Long Island, New York. Like, you don't think of Long Island New York having a brush issue, but they do. I mean, all those companies out there have those big stump jumpers, 2.5 and 5 tons that, those old military surplus trucks, they all have them out there and they drive through trees to go to fires. It's wild what they do, but they have fires that consume out there as well. It's pretty interesting how, call it what you want. I don't know. It's kind of like cyclical, like it happens every 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is. But when it happens, it's overwhelming and people are like caught off guard and surprised by it. But we have the same type of stuff, same infrastructure.
Yeah. And so, yeah, like I held that. Like, it's crazy to think that those places burn having been there. But obviously they do, and you've had them. But the problem is we're getting them so sparse too. Like, as you said, you had big fires 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So where's the experience learnt from those big fires? Well, it's probably gone. We've probably forgotten about it, data dumped it, whatever. But yeah, so I put in for a class on wildland urban interface. Fire engineering picked it up, and it was really good. I got a lot of really good feedback, but it was a lot of imposter syndrome.
Excellent.
And then a lot of having to learn another language. So the beauty is that every summer that you guys have, firefighters from Australia fly to California or Canada or somewhere and help out. And every summer we have, reverse happens, right? So the systems are similar. The wording might be different. So like I had to know what a firebrand was because we don't use that term. We use spotting, those type of things. So to be able to talk. And then I made sure that I read up on 215 and all those type of things to understand what's currently being taught in the wildland urban interface space. Because I don't want to come over there with international information and go, well, here's what we do in my country, so now you got to do it, but you're not allowed to due to codes and standards and all that stuff. So yeah. I had to bridge those gaps, but what was really good was a lot of it was very similar. I just had to learn different terminology to be able to explain it. And it was very challenging, and I think wildland urban interface firefighting is challenging for us as urban firefighters because we're not used to fighting fires on that scale. We're not used to being at a fire and having more structures under threat than we have apparatus. Usually we come to win, we're bringing 6 apparatus to our
100%. 100%.
And then we have 6
we throw
apparatus.
Equipment, water, and people at it, right? And we win, right?
Yeah. We're on the wildland urban interface, you lose. Like, that's part of it.
Right.
There are things you will lose. If it's a really bad fire, there's a lot you will lose. So how do we get that mindset going in our heads? And then how do we make good strategic decisions, set good strategic intent, and pick appropriate tactics to affect that? Knowing the time, distance, and space of our wildland operation is infinitely larger than, put to a single address location that we're usually used to.
Yeah.
So it was really good. I got a lot of really good feedback from people. And I think everyone who came to the class, there wasn't in there. I understand that wildland's probably not the sexy in thing. And one of the guys who was in that class came up to me and said, that was a great class. Sorry about my countrymen. Wildland urban interface is kind of like hazmat, so we don't pick it as classes.
Yeah, right. But I do think like it has become much more prevalent in conversations, and a lot more areas are really talking about the resource drain on it because we're seeing these fires more and more in areas that maybe don't get them as often, and they seem to be happening more often than not. And so, you're starting to look at that, and you have to really plan and train for them. And a lot of the states, the forest departments, like in New Jersey, we have the New Jersey State Forest Fire Service. They're a very active group. They have full-timers, they have part-timers, but like in no way can they handle these fires on their own when they're that magnitude. And so to bring forth, that the structural companies to help them with suppression and building protection, I wouldn't have the foggiest of how to start or what to do. And, we've been deployed on a couple now. And now that I think about it, my own department's been deployed, I think twice this past year alone to go deal with 1,000 acres or whatever it was. And you're looking at, it's a much different operation than, rolling up with fire out 2 windows on arrival. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just so different. But I think we have to start really having those conversations. The imposter syndrome for you, was that because you weren't sure if that was your lane? Like, what was that? Why? How?
I know some phenomenal officers and firefighters who are like
Of
insane at
course.
wildland urban interface firefighting, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm teaching this, and I know these guys would be able to do 10 times a better job of being able to explain this information than I can. Like, I'm an intermediate. I'm a Saturday morning football player kind of thing. B grade compared to some of these guys that I know in my country, but I have the reach and the opportunity to be able to share the information that they've shared with me, and be able to have a bit of experience to be able to say, yeah, look, this stuff works, and this is what we did here and here. I was extremely fortunate. I had one of our very senior command officers and a mentor, and another senior station officer who's also a mentor to me, and a couple of other senior command staff and people who really worked in some really severe fires here in Australia attend my class. Like, obviously they came over with me, so they weren't going to miss it.
Nice.
And that was also intimidating because, they know what I know. They know what I've done. And they're infinitely better at it than me. But it was great to have them in there. And we were able, I got thrown one curly question about legislation because in Australia, I was challenging people with slides. So the house next door to a house was on fire, and that fire had completely demolished the house, and the house is now burning in the decay phase. So, we've got stumps and structural members burning, a lot of the cladding's gone, all that kind of stuff. Right. And the photos of 2 people with garden hoses wetting the wall of their house. And I asked the question, well, do we need to be here? If that's losing its heat release rate, if that's expending all its fuel, if it's already peaked and this house didn't catch fire, I've got 2 capable civilians here wetting the wall. Can I just give them some advice? Tell them, maybe go put on shorts, maybe take your shorts off, put on some jeans and some boots instead of shorts and flip-flops and all that kind of stuff. Keep doing what you're doing. Monitor this, monitor this. Can I then leave and go to something that's more pressing? And that was a really big point of conjecture in the lecture, because some people are like, but I've made contact with those people now. If those people die, it's on me. And it's a mindset thing. And in Australia, you have a right in my state. If you have a pecuniary interest in a property, I cannot remove you unless you're interfering with firefighting operations, and then I'll have to get the police to do it. So in this scenario, will I be able to get the police there? Probably not. Are these people going to leave their property of their own free will? Probably not. So I'm kind of more comfortable doing that, where over there you guys have power of evacuation. You guys have certain things that you can do to be able to remove people. But then again, do I want to remove them?
Yeah, we also have people that are afraid to make a decision, and yeah. Sometimes you got to make a decision, and sometimes you got to move on. And, whatever. That's not for this conversation. But, yeah, I get it, man. But I'm sure it went very well. And I think, you know what you know, and you present what you know. And I think where people get in trouble, like imposter syndrome, I know obviously it's a thing, right? And I guess I've felt it at times, but I think it's more of just nerves. Like, I think we've taken away the conversation of just what nerves are, and we've titled it differently. Like, my daughter, anxiety. I go, you don't have anxiety. You're nervous. You're nervous. Like, you've never done this before. Like, she has a job interview tomorrow. Oh, my gosh, right? Anxiety. I'm like, you're not anxious. You're nervous. I go, you don't have built-in anxiety all the time. You have nerves, and that's normal. And that is part of life. Like, I don't know. I think we overcomplicate everything with titles and words and shit like that. But all of it. But anyway, I don't know where I'm going with that. But you know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't know.
Like, I mean,
so
there were some people that I remember sitting in on one lecture. I'm not going to say where, and I'm not going to say who, and I'm not going to say when. But this lecture, this person was asking the question of whether smoke was heat driven or pressure driven. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, basic gas law says that the smoke creates pressure because it's hot. So smoke can only ever be heat driven, and pressure is a residual fact of that heat. So if that's what you're passing on to students, do you actually know what you're teaching about, or are you just paddling, like trying to keep your head above the water? And I guess we're also not comfortable in saying stuff we don't know. Like when we're up there on the stage or up there and we get that curly question.
That is true. That comes across.
Yeah, no one goes, oh, well, actually, no. Fuck, mate, great question. Let's explore that. Who's got their Google machine? Let's get it out. Let's talk about this. Because we're scared to be seen as wanting or not knowledgeable. Yeah, so it's one of those
Well, and that
things.
brings you right back to your academy days, to your new fire officer days. Like, there's things you better know, and then there's things you're like, I don't freaking know. Let's look it up together. Let's figure this out. I don't know. I mean, you have to be willing, and that's a big part of it, is like you have to get comfortable with your own skills and abilities. And the only ones that become really good bosses are the ones that get comfortable with who they are. And when you're confident, it shows. When you're not, it shows. And confidence wins. Conviction matters. A lot of times people are like, oh, you're a bully. I'm like, I'm not a bully. I have conviction. I believe in what I'm talking about because I'm talking about things that I have the right to talk about. These are things that I've formulated my own opinions and based upon my own experiences. I don't talk about theory. If you've never done it, it's theory, period.
Bang on. 100%. But I love what you said.
Bang on. I love that.
I love what you said, though, because I've never thought about it that way. Good bosses understand themselves and know who they are and what they're about. And that would include, and correct me if I'm wrong, accepting the faults you have. Sorry, time delay.
100%.
Yeah.
That's what makes you.
Yeah, keep going.
But that's what makes you. Like the only way you can be good. Like I had this conversation with my wife. I'm like, the only way I can be good in our marriage is if I'm good personally, meaning all my needs, wants, desires, things I need to have, things I want to have, the desires that I have to make me whole. If I don't have that, and I'm not good as my own individual self, I'll never be a good husband. You have to be a little bit selfish sometimes. You have to have the things you need. When you're a fire officer, there are certain things you need to have. You need to have knowledge and experience. And when you trust in your own knowledge and experience because you've done it, not because you've read about it, not because you've seen it, but because you've done it, that confidence exudes out of you. When you haven't done it before and you're not talking from a place of experience, it's only theory, and you can never, ever talk about it with true conviction because you've never done it. When people ask about leadership, and everybody wants leadership podcasts, leadership books, leadership, I'm all for it. Go make yourself better by listening to somebody tell you how to be a better leader, read a book, how to be a better leader. But until you actually step into a position to lead, you haven't done it. Leadership comes from experience, period.
100%. So I do want to challenge you, though. So I'm going to throw something at you, a bit curvy.
Please. I love it.
All right. So Rick Warren in The Purpose-Driven Life says that learning from the experience of others is better than learning from your own. So it's one thing to learn from experience. It's another thing to learn from the experience of others so you don't make certain mistakes. You didn't have to go through that to make those mistakes. Do you understand what I'm saying there?
Sometimes you got to touch the stove.
Yeah, sometimes you got to touch.
Sometimes,
I like that.
sometimes you got to touch the stove. I can be told that. I can be told the stove is hot, and what do? Yeah. Oh, the stove's hot. Sure, it is. I'll touch it. Right.
How
Like
hot?
I guess. I mean, I think there's value in Jared. I think there's value in that, right? But I think when you I think that's an oversimplification because, like in the fire service, I can learn from your experience about crawling down a hallway on a 7-story high rise to get to an apartment door that's blazing away because the homeowners didn't close it when they ran out of the apartment. I've never done that before. I've never had to crawl down the hallway of a tenement building in a high rise, potentially wind driven, open doors, fuel pumping out into the hallway and trying to make that push. I've never had to do that. I go to fires in residential buildings and like regular town commercial buildings and some industrial stuff, but like I don't go to high rise fires. So I can learn from you and I can listen from your mistakes and you can tell me how to do it, how it works. Here's the tips, tricks, and hacks. Look for this, do that. But you got to put yourself in that position. Like I'll learn from I can learn from you, but I firmly believe there's nothing better than learning from yourself. Like it's simple things. It's like hanging, like I'm just looking at like my studio here and I'm looking like blank walls and I got to hang up photos and posters and stuff. And like, if you've never hung a photo on the wall or a framed piece of art, you want to find a stud if it's heavy, whatever. There's ways to do that. And I can read about it, but until you do it, you're going to bang up. You're going to put a screw into the wall or nail in the wall and not hit a stud because you watched something on YouTube, but it just didn't click the first time. I still think you need to do it. I think that's a bad example, but I can appreciate that, but I think it's too simple.
I think so. So you just woke me up to it when you talked about crawling down the hall of a 7-story high-rise to the open apartment door. You've never done that. But if I'm going to teach you about this and I really want to pass on as much of my experience as possible, I then contextualize that feeling to one that you've had that's similar, right?
Mm-hmm.
You might not have pushed down the hallway of a
Mm-hmm.
high-rise building, but you've pushed down some hallways, right?
Sure.
So now I go, all right, so when you push down the residential hallway, this happened. Here's the variables that you're going to get, so you need to be thinking about this, this, and this on top of what you already know. And that then helps me pass on that experience. Again, you still have to probably do it, but you're probably better prepared from having learnt from someone.
Oh, better prepared, no doubt, right? I'd rather learn from someone than not learn at all, right? It's like reading. I wish I read more books. I get bored when I read, and so I do books on audio and things like that, but I wish I could actually read. Like, it would make me a better person. I've come to realize that it would make me a better person if I read more, right? But how about this? Like, I say it's an oversimplification because there's varying degrees. And so think about a new kid going to his first fire. Like, he's not going to make the same push you and I would.
No
right?
confidence.
Even a 3-year, a 5-year fireman, right? Like, it comes from experience, and experience is actually doing it yourself.
100%.
That's why I always say, if you haven't done it, it's theory. If you go to a training class and learn, it's great. It's information, but it's only theory because you haven't put it to a practical use yet. So I think we have so many people that live in theory, and I would really challenge people to understand that theory has to be put to practice to make it practice, right? I mean, you can read about doing push-ups, or you could actually do them.
100%. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm missing the mark on this. Maybe.
And you could, like, okay, I've kind of put my hands here and here, but you might do something like a shoulder impingement because you haven't done them yourself. If you just went off the book. Like, yeah, I get what you're saying. 100%. So it's about marrying both up. And especially, so when it comes back to the instructor, they have to be able to contextualize it. And I think a lot of failure there when you speak about the new people coming in the door is a lot of instructors go, so when you're crawling down that hallway, and they forget that the people they're talking to are like, never crawled down a hallway since I was 3 years old.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting. It's a good debate.
I
And there's place for both. There's definitely place for both.
I think this, right? Not everybody's afforded an opportunity to be able to put their skills to work every single time they go out the door. And so what can you do in replacement of that while you're waiting for the opportunity to crawl that hallway? You should be doing everything you can to lead up to that moment. So when you're presented with that moment, you're comfortable and confident in what you've read about, learned about, have seen, have practiced, have been told. All those things come together to prepare you for that one moment, right? Think about like astronauts. Astronauts train, and they only get that one shot, right? So now it's like they've done all that prep work, and now they're sitting on a booster rocket full of rocket fuel, ready to go to the frickin' moon, and that's their only time, right?
Yeah.
And they've worked so hard to get to that moment, but until they do it, like if they've never left, they're not an astronaut. You got to go to space to be an astronaut. You know what I'm saying?
Bang on. Bang on.
I don't know. Maybe it's my take.
Nah, I love it.
I want people. I don't want to overcomplicate this. I think today we overcomplicate the shit out of everything. And I don't think we need to. I think firefighting is very easy. It's very straightforward and simple, and then there's incredible nuances about, what we do and how we do. But the overall, it's pretty simple. And we get in our own way, but I think what we need to do is tell our people from the get, when they come through the door and you grab them at the training academy, it's simple, guys. This is very easy. We have to put water on the fire. We have to search for people. When the fire is knocked down, we have to open up and look for a hidden fire. And then we like to protect people's valuables, right? And in the course of all of that, there's certain things that we have to do in a timely fashion. And then you break it down that way. But like, I find we overcomplicate things, and then people are just like, the guys will just look at you and be like, what are we doing now? And I'm like, stop. Like, let's slow this down. I don't know if we want to get fancy, if it's repackaging with bigger words, we look smarter. I don't know, but it's not hard, bro. It's not hard.
Dude, we're boiling water and playing hide and seek. That's it. That's all we're doing.
See, man.
Boil
That's
water
it. I love that.
Hide and seek. It's, and I agree with you. Like, I sit there and I watch these things and I'm like, why are we getting so complex and deep? Like, if you want to have discussions around doctrine creation, all that kind of stuff, or creating a curriculum to teach, you need to have a deep understanding. But you have to understand that the target audience, again, you said it earlier, we're getting intellects and now we have to teach them blue collar stuff. So that's the new generation. We've got intellects, now we've got to teach them how to be blue collar. So what's the focus got to be on? Probably the blue collar stuff, and then we teach them what they need to know to be able to execute the blue collar stuff in the intellect. It's not hard. We make it hard because we then go into what's right, what's wrong. If you look at it at the end of the day, you put water on the fire, you find people, you search for hidden fire, you protect valuables. That's it. They're your objectives. Achieve them how you will. You want to use CFBT techniques, so that compartment fire behavior training, gas cooling stuff that we and Europeans do it. If you want to do straight stream surface cooling with a smoothbore nozzle, do it. It doesn't have to be complex.
I don't care.
And I think
that's right. I don't care how you do it. Just do the job.
And NFPA 1700, Chapter 10, has really made tactics simple. It has here's your objective. Here's your tactic name. Here's the objective of the tactic. Here's how it works in 2 sentences. Here's some things to think about when you employ it. Here's the preferred technique. Here's the alternative technique. Here's some safety stuff. That's it. Now go out there and do it with your 2.5. Do it with your aerial apparatus. Do it with your 1 3/4. Do it with your 1.5. I don't care. But NFPA 1700 is probably Chapter 10 is probably the best document of breaking those tactics down. It's brilliant. And it's simple. and every fire service curriculum should just be hammering on, here's 6 water tactics, here's 6 vent tactics. Now we're going to go execute each of these tactics with different task level skills. You know, we'll do an exterior attack with an 1.5 inches. I don't care.
Perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like, that's the thing. It's like, why is everybody caught up on how everybody I don't care. I know how we do it where I ride. That's all I care about.
Yeah.
How you guys do it down there, I'm sure it's different. And I'm sure it looks, different. And I don't care.
You
right?
do care about our trucks, though. You said they're ugly. I saw that message.
They're not pretty. It's a different world, man. Like, I love it. When Pip came back from the trip from his trip down there with you, and he was telling me about like the lifeguards, and he was telling me how like advertising on their uniforms and stuff, like it's how corporate it is and so on. It was just like really interesting, like cultural things, and I'm just fascinated with that. But I love the fire service, and what I love about it, especially today with the opportunities that we have, you can see how we are all so similar and yet also different, because the world today is an open book. And so, we can see how you guys operate down there, and you see how we operate here. And, I find what's really interesting too is, how you participated in that Elkhart trip, which I just thought was like such a great idea to like share tactics and strategies from different continents. And it's like, it's so cool. And it's like some of the stuff we do in the States, interesting. Some of the stuff they do in Europe, interesting. Does it all one size fit all? No, it's not even close to one size fit all. But we can appreciate one another for what we do. And I think that that's the one thing that we have to really focus on, is the appreciation for one another. And as long as, I think this is kind of a good way to start to like wrap here, is like, as long as your heart's in it and you allow yourself, you give yourself to it. And I know that's hard for a lot of people to really understand, but like, I know you're all in. I know you're ate up with this stuff. And I am too, obviously. And I find, and I didn't understand this until only in the last several years, but giving yourself to it and finding a true love and passion in this has made me better. It's made me a better fireman, but it's also made me a better person. And it's also surrounded me with incredible people that I truly cherish and appreciate their friendships. The friendships I have today at 48 years old is so much different than the relationships I've had, previous. And I have an incredible group of friends that I always talk about, sit with people that push you to be better. And those are the people that want to talk about tomorrow. I'm tired of talking about yesterday and today. I want to talk about tomorrow, and find people that encourage you to do that. And you're certainly one of them, Gerard. I mean, it's just friendships like this that I just appreciate and value more than anything else. And it's because of the fire service that I have opportunities like this. That's a freaking win, man. All day long, that's a win.
Bang on. Like, if you look at it from those perspectives that you just mentioned, like I was just thinking, okay, what's the fire service taught me individually? Humility, patience. I'm trying to think of the word to describe it, but like, all right, you're on your 13th call, it's after midnight, and you got to remind yourself, man, you used to pray to do this. You used to literally sit down and pray to God that you would become a firefighter. Don't give me this shit now that you're tired and that you don't want to be here. You wanted this more than anything in the world. Don't forget that's it. So I guess that passion, that drive, that grounding, and then the friendships that are built on top of it are just absolutely amazing. Like, I never thought I'd be talking to you ever in my life. I remember watching you, what is it now, 6 years, 7 years? When you started National Fire?
7 years.
About 7 years. I remember when you first started, I was watching you in the father-in-law's garage. I'm like, this is sick. How good's this? Love this show. And now I'm on it, which is
so
sick.
long ago.
Three-peat. I'm a three-peat.
Of course you're on it.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
But this is like this friendship.
Well, but it's because I want to. I want to surround myself with people I enjoy being with. And like, that's the cool thing about what I get to do, is like, I've built a platform that allows me to pursue my passion and love. Like, it doesn't get any better than that, period.
Well, you can't soar like an eagle if you're pecking around with chickens, can you?
You're damn right.
Yeah. Now,
You're
before
right.
we go, because I know we're wrapping up,
You're right. Yes, sir.
I'm looking at my thing, 398. Is that episode 398?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're 2 away from 400.
Yes.
I can't. I'm not going to ask for any spoilers or anything like that. I just can't wait to see that episode. That episode's going to be amazing.
Episode 400 is going to be incredibly special. It is the biggest and best guest I've ever had on the show. No offense to you. I love you and all, but this gentleman has been instrumental in my world. And he'll be on episode 400. I can't wait to share him with all of you. So it's going to be awesome.
Good. And congratulations
I appreciate that.
To you,
and
all of the team, everyone at National Fire Radio. Huge achievement.
Thanks, dude.
Absolutely brilliant. And what you do and what you
it's funny. I wish we started numbering them from the beginning, because I would say we're probably around 700 episodes, I would say. So we didn't number like in the beginning and like idiots. So like there are so many episodes that have no numbers assigned to them and they're just titled or whatever. So 400 is only in the last probably 2.5 years, I think, is like that's. I mean, I was doing 4 episodes a day last year. I mean, or 4 episodes a week, so it was legit, man. I pushed myself to get uncomfortable with the schedule and to get content out. And listen, man, you know how I am. I am so grateful for this opportunity, and I make the opportunity, but I'm grateful that I've challenged myself to grow with this, and I'm just the luckiest guy in the world. I love it. I absolutely love it. So thank you for the kind words. You're a rock star.
Back at you, mate. Back at you. Well, thank you for having me again.
So, yes, thank you. Thank you.
Yep, appreciate it.
Three-peat, man. Three-peat. Of course, you always have an open invitation. You know that. Congratulations on the 2 classes at FDIC this year that I heard great things about. Thank you for sharing a little bit about each. More so, the conversation today was fantastic. Good luck with your new position and getting settled there. And let me know when you start growing that thing back on your lip. I guess as confidence grows in your officership, you will continue to grow out that mustache to represent how well you're getting and adjusted at that new position. It makes sense. But I value you very much. I'm sorry you had to cut your trip short this year, but you know what? I'm looking forward to crossing paths with you again soon, my friend. And you take care of yourself, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Too easy. Hopefully next year we can stretch it out. We are trying to bring in a new little person into our lives. So if that happens, the trip will probably have to be short.
I love it.
But yeah, so that's where I'm at in the stage of life, which is really cool. But
that's all right. Thanks. You know what? I love it. That is so fantastic. And it will just force me to have to come your way then. That's all.
100%, my man. There's an open invite. You know that. Too easy.
I love it.
All right. Thank you.
Gerard Mann, you're the man. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. Stay right here. I'm going to sign off, and then I'll come right back to you. Okay, buddy? Thank you. Guys, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the National Fire Radio podcast. As I say at the end of every single episode, take this conversation, take it back to the firehouse and talk about it. Because when you're talking about the job, you're making the job better. We'll see you at the next one. Jeremy, National Fire Radio.
National Fire Radio.